Hi there, it's Jane Birkinshaw from Love Your Lens here. I want to talk to you today about the theme of framed, which was our theme for May. And as you can see, I've picked out a number of images which were my favourites or ones that I specifically want to talk about. I'm really pleased, as usual, to see that you've submitted so many images. But what I also want to say is that if you want to hit the or make the shortlist that I prepare every month, then there's certain criteria that I'm always going to look for. And they are as follows: that the image has got to be in focus where it should be, that it should be well exposed according to the mood or feeling that you're wanting to convey via the image, and that it should meet the brief very well as well. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't post some of the pictures that you do, because they will be often provide a bit of inspiration and ideas for other people. They can be quite amusing, and I'm sure people post for lots of different reasons. But if you have a serious intention to kind of make it to this list or these favourites every month, then that's the kind of criteria that you really need to hit. So here are my favourites for the month from Framed. Some really, really strong pictures here, as you can see. Some of them I've picked out, they may have a few weaknesses, but I'm going to talk you through those as well. And then towards the end, you will see my favourite. So this first image submitted by Janet Pope. I really like the concept that you're trying to deliver here, Janet. I think it's quirky, it's funny, and it's, you know, you've got a lovely subject there of the dog. For me, it doesn't quite work because the frame's not in focus. So if you either use a higher F number or get back from your frame a little bit, or maybe a combination of both, then you'd bring both into focus. You've got a bit of a reflection going on here of your watch and something else here, and this chair here is a little distracting. But as I've said, in terms of the concept that you were trying to deliver, I really like it. So well done for thinking of that. Then we've got this lovely cute little fox cub by Dean Bryant. Again, we can see that there's things that are technically wrong with this shot. I suspect it's heavily cropped, and I suspect it's taken in low light and you've had to use a high ISO, and that's why we've got this graininess. But again, kudos to you for going for this shot and submitting it as framed, because his little face is quite clearly framed. And again, it's one of these things that it's quite a rare thing to capture, so you did absolutely right submitting it for this theme. In terms of getting it a little bit better for the future, it's really tricky. You have to start outlaying some serious money for a good zoom lens that's got a constant low F number, so maybe f2.8 even when you're at the top end of your zoom, and that sort of lens can be in the high hundreds, if not £1,000. So given the kit that you've probably got, I mean, correct me, Dean, if I'm wrong, but I suspect from my previous experience that that's what's happened here to give it the graininess. Okay. Then we've got this shot by Sarah Rose. I just love the fact that she was in the Tate Gallery in St Ives looking at lots of artwork, looking at lots of actual framed photographs, portraits, paintings, etc. And she's come across this one, which, she shot this to reflect the landscape outside the window, and it meets the brief. Technically, yeah, there's a few things wrong with it. Slightly overexposed on the outside here. Birds not quite in focus. Could be because there's some pretty thick glass going on as well. But again, it's the concept and the idea that you're trying to deliver. And in the context of where you were as well, Sarah, I think it's quite clever. And it's a nice minimalist picture that you've got going on there with, has an emotion to it, has a feel. Okay, then we've got talking about emotion and having a connection to the viewer. We've got this gorgeous little pup from Susan Michelle Francis peering out through a fence. Hope he's not actually got his head stuck. And it's a lovely little capture, isn't it? It's well executed. It's cute. It does its job of making a connection with the viewer. So well done there, Susan. Got a few of your pictures in this time. Yep, next one, Susan Francis photography again. This one, now this is a completely different feel to the previous shot, doesn't it? This dog here, looking a bit wary, anxious maybe. So the feel is overall very, very different, and you know, perhaps well reflected by the fact that it's a bit gloomier, but the dog's face is well exposed. So again, I like that as a concept. So thank you for that. Then we've got this wonderful heron by Liz Kenny, sharp, kind of on its eye and beak anyway, might be a little bit fuzzy on the neck, but it's hard to tell, but a really nice capture of a bird and fit in the framed by using the soft focus in the foreground. So yeah, a worthy contender in this group. Jude Parkin, I really like this. I like the composition of it. There's a few different things going on. There's a real contrasts are great in composition, and there's a few different contrasts we've got. We've got the contrast of the kind of plain recessive kind of grey white of this building, and then we've got the more vibrant, darker colours within the reflection. We've got a clear, strong geometric pattern going on with the brickwork, and then we've got the wobbly, more nebulous reflection as well. Repeating patterns, some strong lines within this image, I think all make for a great shot and very well spotted. Then the final one from Susan Francis, this time Susan Michelle Francis, really well captured shot of a dog leaping through flame. You know, great action shot, and the way that the fire has distorted, the heat has distorted the shot here. This looks like a painting, doesn't it? It looks like an abstract painting. So arresting shot and interesting and well taken. Okay. Then another fire shot, and again, subject well framed by fire, well exposed, well captured, interesting, grabs our attention, and this one is by Liz Kenny again. Slight shame about these dark areas up here, but I know what it's like. You were where you were when you captured it. You did a good job to capture this, so we'll let you off that. Okay, then on a similar vein, a human, a person, a lovely young lady actually, framed by this twig structure. I think what really makes this shot for me is the light. It's direct sunlight, but it's not bright enough that it's caused us any problems. Yes, we've got a few shadows, we've got a few highlights, but it hasn't done anything to affect the expression on the girl's face and the exposure on her face. And then we've got the contrast against the darker background, and I think it works really well as a shot. And if it was a child of mine and I'd taken that shot, I'd be quite happy with it, more than happy, quite chuffed actually. So well done, Kate Slater. And another shot of a child framed, pretty joyful shot by Claire Louise. What I think is quite clever about this shot is I suspect it's been taken with a very shallow depth of field, and the only area that is really in focus is the bit that needs to be. So she's captured the right moment here. She's got just the end of the tunnel in focus, the tube and the child, and she's captured the action beautifully. And again, it's got quite a abstract feel about it because of the colours, the depth of field, and just the effect of the way that the water's splashed as well. So a nice shot. No surprise to see a picture by Alan Ewart here. Alan has got a great eye for good composition, and he also nails quite a few other things as well. This type of shot is actually technically quite difficult. So let's go through a few of those things. We've got the correct depth of field. So we have got the foreground in focus, and we've got the background framed through the window in focus as well. Now that just requires a higher F number, and you being the kind of the right distance away from the object in the foreground. Takes a little bit of practice, and you'll get that right. The more difficult element, and this suits Alan's kind of style to the ground, is getting the exposure of this correct and getting the exposure of this area correct as well. Now, I know that Alan will have done some processing here to achieve this, because in camera it's really difficult to do. You're going to find that you will either get this area right, which is what I would go for, and then this area will be too dark. And the only way to get that absolutely right in camera is to start using bracketed shots. Try and use your HDR function, use a tripod, take several shots and merge them either in camera if your camera will let you do it, or in Photoshop, etc. afterwards. Now, I suspect what Alan has done is use some kind of HDR editing technique where he's able to bring out the detail of all of this darker area in the foreground. And if you shoot in RAW, you can actually achieve some really good results doing that. And you can even slightly overexpose the background area to give you a bit more light in the foreground. Just don't take it too far so that you can then bring down those highlights when you're editing that area. I hope that wasn't too much detail too fast. But if it's something that people want to know a little bit more about, just let me know. But Alan, as ever, you've nailed it. Then we've got this really interesting shot by Amanda Smith. Really like it. I've no idea of the scale of this chain in the foreground. I suspect it might not be anything like as big as it looks. And then she's nailed using this loop to frame the lighthouse in the background. She's just about got the depth of field right. We're sharp here. Again, as I've just said with the previous shot, quite difficult to do, especially as I think she's quite close. So this has been really good. I'd be interested to know if that's been shot with a phone, actually, Amanda. I think it might have been, and then phones will cope better with that depth of field issue when we're trying to get a wide depth of field. Yeah, really like it. Maybe a slight tad overexposed, little bit, just feels slightly bright to me. But I really like what you've achieved here, Amanda. Thank you. This is fab. Who'd have thought of this, apart from Ray Fung, of course. So, giant bubble that we all love playing with, and he's snapped it, framing. I've just completely forgotten what that is. You can all tell me afterwards. My brain's just gone blank. St Paul's Cathedral. So absolutely brilliantly done, really interesting, really quirky, in sharp, correctly exposed, slightly bright areas here. God, I'm going to forgive you that. Absolutely cracking shot, Ray. Really like it. Then we've got Thomas Batson-Well, and I've got a couple of shots from Thomas because I thought they deserved a mention. This shot, had it not been for these fence metal rods going across here, this would be fab. Typical, strong travel shot of an interesting local person framed through the window, natural, candid shot, a glimpse of what a life is like, just very simple through the laundry in the background. Really, really nice, and it's just such a shame, and I know there's nothing you could have done about that, Thomas, and that's why I've included it. Then this shot, this grabbed me. At first, I kind of was thinking, I like it. I love the fact that you've used the horse's legs to frame this guy underneath. He's just caught you looking at what he's doing, but it still feels like a good, strong, natural travel shot. And then I started thinking, what would it be like if you cropped it, nearly said the wrong word then, cropped it to kind of get a bit rid of this kind of distracting brighter area in the background. So, don't know what you think. You might completely disagree with me, and this is always subjective, but I just then had a look at this cropped like this to bring it in onto the subject. So we still see the horse, we still, but we get a stronger sense of the guy being framed. And then I would just go and remove that maybe. just to kind of get rid of any distractions. But you can see why I've included it, I hope. Technically not quite right, maybe, but a really interesting shot and worthy of a mention. Okay, so we're approaching the exciting bits now. This is a cracking shot from Emma Hayes. You can be in church photographing weddings, photographing choirs and things like that, and they can all look a bit samey if you're not careful. And Emma has gone for a really great idea here. She's had a look around, she's had a think about how she could make this shot more interesting, and she's cracked it with this, peeking through a gap in a wooden panel. She's managed to nail this, so we know exactly what we're supposed to be looking at. Not only that, I love the fact that there's so much going on in this image. Your eye travels around, there's lots of gossip going on here, there's a bit of something going on there. The light is centered on this woman who's going to be the center of attention in a minute, and there's something, bits going on here. So really interesting shot. Sorry if you can hear my dogs barking in the background, but I'm in full flow now and I don't really want to stop. So well done, Emma. Really innovative and well captured. And I mean, look at it as well. There's no noise. It's correctly exposed. It's sharp. So absolutely nailed that. Doesn't matter that this frame here is fuzzy. Doesn't spoil it for me. In this instance, it works. Okay. Lovely strong shot by Linda Haney here, one of our newer members. Fabulous portrait, really. I love the texture of this window, the contrast of the light versus the dark. The pose is strong, it's good. He's got a very interesting face, and I think you've really nailed it. Now, I suspect it might be a professional shot for something that you're working on, and the only reason I've not picked it as my ultimate favourite is because when we get onto the next shot, I felt that it was less stylised, more candid, and that we agree or not that that's a reason why I didn't make it a winner, but anyway, you'll see when I go on to the next shot that they're both really strong portraits, framed, and I hope you agree with my decision and that you're proud and pleased that you're up here, Linda, because it's a cracking shot. Okay, so here we go. This is my favourite shot for the theme of Framed, and this is by Denise Dawson, and I think it's an absolute cracker. I love the fact that it provokes a question. I want to know more about it. I want to know where you are. I want to know who this guy is. Is he on the inside? Is he on the outside? I suspect he's outside, reflected onto this window, but I'm not sure. The colours are fantastic. The old weathered glass, the composition, the wood around the outside. It's just great, and it's a really strong spot for the theme, Denise. So went by instinct, which I often do with this, and instinctively this was my favourite shot, and it ticked all the boxes for me. So there's a slight reward for those of you who've stuck with me till the very end. It is only the 31st of May today. The theme isn't due to be announced for June until tomorrow, but because you've stuck with me all the way to the end, listening to all of my rambling, I'm going to let you into what the theme is for June. And it's #break. Okay, so in this instance I've interpreted that as the breaking of waves. The word break actually has tons and tons of interpretations, so look out for the email that you'll get from me. Just as a little bit of critique of my own image, you will see that I have got a dirty sensor here. That I hadn't spotted when I picked this image out. So there you go. Right, so thank you so much, everybody, for submitting all these images. Again, you are awesome, and I look forward to seeing your images for the new theme next month. Take care.